All right, let's talk about Europe, shall we? Specifically, the fact that it seems to be in the midst of a bit of an identity crisis. On one hand, you've got this whole unified, borderless utopia thing going on, but on the other, well, let's just say the welcome mat seems to be getting pulled back in rather firmly. See, across Europe, immigration policies are tightening up faster than a python around a particularly plump rodent. We're about to break down the top 10 European countries deporting immigrants in 2025. Germany. Land of beer, bratwurst, and apparently increasingly brisk deportations. You see, Germany's been known for its relatively open-door policy towards refugees, particularly during the Syrian crisis. But lately, the political winds have shifted, and let's just say the welcome wagon has gotten a flat tire. The government's now fast-tracking deportations, specifically targeting those from so-called safe countries. Germany's been busy striking deals with North African countries, which basically amounts to, hey, we'll give you some money and you take back your people. Deportation flights are expected to skyrocket by a whopping 30% in 2025. Next up, we've got France, a country that's always prided itself on being a beacon of liberty and equality. But lately, it seems like that beacon's battery might be running a little low. See, France has decided to crack down on immigration with the subtlety of a bull in a china shop. They've ramped up border checks, and let's just say those checks seem to be a bit more thorough, if you happen to be from a certain part of the world. Operation Secure Borders is France's plan to remove thousands of undocumented migrants by the end of the year. Italy, land of pasta, pizza, and panicked attempts to stem the flow of migrants across the Mediterranean. Italy's geographical misfortune of being the first port of call for many desperate souls fleeing conflict and poverty has turned into a political hot potato. They're building bigger fences and deploying more patrol boats. Because no matter how high the walls or how many boats you send back, desperation is a powerful motivator. Italy's also been busy cozying up to North African countries, hoping to outsource its migration woes. The situation in the Mediterranean is a humanitarian crisis, and simply turning a blind eye to it isn't going to make it disappear. The United Kingdom, land of tea, crumpets, and a government that seems hell-bent on making life as difficult as possible for asylum seekers. First, there was Brexit, which was sold to the public with promises of taking back control of the UK's borders. And boy, have they taken control, all right. Control over basic human decency, that is. The UK has this lovely little scheme called the Rwanda Asylum deal, which basically amounts to putting vulnerable people on a one-way flight to a country with a less-than-stellar human rights record. The result? Asylum appeals are down, but not because there are fewer people in need of protection. It's because the system is designed to weed people out, not offer them refuge. Sweden, land of Vikings, meatballs, and until recently a reputation for being a haven for refugees. But lately it seems like even Sweden's famous tolerance has its limits. Sweden's been grappling with a rise in gang violence, and rather than addressing the complex socio-economic factors that contribute to such problems, they've decided to take the easy way out, blaming immigrants. Deportations are expected to surge in 2025, and Sweden's image as a bastion of compassion takes another hit. Greece, land of ancient ruins, stunning beaches, and a whole lot of migrants stuck in limbo. Greece has the unfortunate distinction of being on the front lines of Europe's migration crisis, and while they've shown remarkable resilience and compassion in the face of overwhelming numbers, even Greece has its limits. So what's Greece to do? They've been ramping up deportations to Turkey. Under the watchful eye of the EU, Turkey's not exactly thrilled about being Europe's dumping ground, but hey, money talks, right? The conditions in those overcrowded migrant camps on the Greek islands have been described as open-air prisons. Chapter 7. Denmark, land of hygge, pastries, and a rather ruthless approach to asylum seekers. Denmark's current government seems to be operating under the belief that if you make life unpleasant enough for refugees, they'll just decide to pack up and go bother someone else. They've embraced the whole offshore processing scheme with the zeal of a child discovering a particularly sticky lollipop. That's right, they're sending asylum seekers to Rwanda, and if that's not enough, they've also made it harder for refugees to get work permits, effectively forcing them to rely on government assistance that barely covers the cost of a cup of coffee. It's all part of a deliberate strategy to create what they call a less attractive environment for asylum seekers. Austria, land of Mozart, mountains, and a surprisingly harsh stance on immigration. You might picture Austria and think of rolling hills, charming villages, and Julie Andrews spinning around in a field. but behind that idyllic facade lies a government that's been quietly but effectively tightening the screws on immigration. They've ramped up border controls, expedited hearings for asylum seekers, and generally made it clear that if you're not Austrian, you're not particularly welcome. It's enough to make you wonder if they've considered just building a giant wall around the country and calling it a day. The Netherlands, land of windmills, tulips, and a surprisingly rigid approach to asylum seekers. The Netherlands, like many European countries, has been experiencing a bit of an identity crisis when it comes to immigration. On the one hand, they've got this long history of tolerance and acceptance, but on the other hand, they've got a growing far-right movement that's been exploiting fears about immigration for political gain. The result, a rather incoherent and frankly inhumane asylum policy. They've introduced a strict asylum quota, making it increasingly difficult for asylum seekers to actually, seek asylum. Belgium, land of waffles, chocolate, and a surprisingly efficient deportation machine. Belgium, a country best known for its delicious food and somewhat confusing political system, has also become quite adept at sending people back to where they came from. They've introduced fast-track deportation policies, which are basically like express lanes for removing unwanted immigrants. They've increased police raids because nothing says welcome to Belgium like a knock on the door at 3 a.m. So, there you have it, a whirlwind tour of Europe's increasingly harsh immigration landscape. As we've seen across the continent, countries are tightening their borders, restricting asylum and ramping up deportations. The reasons for this shift are complex and multifaceted, ranging from genuine concerns about security and integration to cynical political calculations and good old-fashioned xenophobia. So, what do you think? Are these measures necessary to protect national security and manage migration flows? Or are they a betrayal of Europe's values and a violation of human rights? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button for more in-depth analysis of the issues shaping our world.